The Vault Hunters step beyond the threshold of Sadler's study and into the main street of Shadow Grove, and the silence strikes them like a hammer to the chest. It's the kind of quiet that shouldn't exist. A town like Shadow Grove should be alive with sound. Blacksmiths hammering steel, shopkeepers calling out prices, children laughing, horses clopping through cobbled streets. But now, nothing. Not even the wind dares to blow. For a moment, they might think their ears have betrayed them, that some strange magic has stolen their hearing. But no, the silence is real, and it is loud. The three Vault Hunters, Suidas, Cliff, and Mr. Phantom, walk slowly down the center of the street, boots crunching faintly on loose gravel and broken glass. Their eyes scan the area, expecting to see someone, anyone. But instead, they see death. Atlas soldiers, once proud in their crimson and white armor, now lie lifeless in the streets, their helmets cracked, their limbs twisted at unnatural angles. Steam still rises from shattered mechs, their engines gutted and bleeding iridium. The Magitech tanks, so impressive just hours ago, now burn in sickly orange and blue flames, fires that hiss and spit like they're angry to be alive. The scent hits next. Burnt metal, cooked flesh, ash. One of the mechs still twitches, its core humming low before fizzling into silence. A soldier's hand is caught in its gears, crushed mid-scream. Cliff exhales slowly, fingers tightening around the grip of his Jacob's revolver. This wasn't a fight. This was an execution. Suidas walks ahead, stepping around a broken halberd and a toppled cart. Her eyes flick between rooftops and windows, half expecting a sniper or survivor, but there's no one, only stillness. Mr. Phantom kneels by one of the soldiers, the body still warm. Whatever happened here wasn't long ago. He scans the burn patterns, magical and mechanical, a volatile fusion of both. This wasn't just brute force, he mutters. This was precision. A cold breeze finally cuts through the street, and with it ash dances in the air like snow. The flames crackle and reflect in the Vault Hunter's eyes. The town that once stood strong now lies in eerie ruin. The sisters had returned, and Shadow Grove paid the price. But the question hangs heavier than the silence. Where is everyone else? And what will the Vault Hunters find if they keep going forward? The Vault Hunters moved quickly, their boots echoing through the empty streets of Shadow Grove. A familiar thought struck each of them nearly at once. Lucky. He ran the tavern. He knew everyone. If anyone made it through the attack, it would be him. The doors of Lucky's tavern were no longer intact. One was completely splintered, the other hung awkwardly from a single hinge, swaying gently in the breeze. A sign once warm and welcoming now tilted sideways, scorched and cracked. Inside, the silence was suffocating. What was once the heart of the town, the place where laughter roared louder than the music, where mugs clanked and dice rolled across wooden tables, was now nothing more than a grave. The floor, once polished with footsteps and ale, was stained deep crimson. Blood had seeped between the cracks of the wood and pooled beneath overturned chairs. Tables were shattered, plates still held half-eaten meals. A mandolin lay in two pieces near the corner stage, its strings plucked loose like the lasts of joy escaping into the void. Bodies were scattered everywhere, men, women, even a few older teens, townsfolk who must have sought refuge or simply hadn't had time to react when the sisters came. Suidas clenched her fists, the air around her humming with restrained energy. Cliff's hat tipped low, casting a shadow over his eyes as he knelt beside a fallen barkeep. Not Lucky. Mr. Phantom swept the tavern slowly, quietly, as if afraid the noise might wake the dead. His fingers brushed over scorch marks along the bar, blackened by some blast. It wasn't clean. The attackers had taken their time. No one had made it out. No one except... From behind the bar, beneath the shattered rack of dusty old bottles, came a soft sound. Breathing. Ragged. Shallow. The Vault Hunters froze. Could it be? Suidas slowly made her way behind the ruined bar, shards of glass crunching underfoot. The blood-stained counter still held a few unbroken bottles, trembling slightly from her movements. Her sharp eyes scanned the dark space behind it, and there, tucked behind a fallen shelf, she spotted it. The hatch. Wooden. Open. Hinges barely clinging. She crouched, hand resting on the hilt of her weapon as she peered into the cellar below. Darkness stared back, but there was something else. The faintest whisper of breath. Shallow. Afraid. Meanwhile, Mr. Phantom moved from body to body, gently placing Godric's staff over the hearts of the fallen. He channeled its power, watched as the crystal glowed faintly orange, and then dimmed. Again and again. Nothing. No one returned. The staff wasn't rejecting them. They simply couldn't be brought back. He glanced at Suidas and shook his head grimly. Cliff knelt beside a broken table, brushing sawdust off a woman's face. Her eyes were open, staring into the void. And there it was again, carved into the center of her forehead, a single crude X. His eyes narrowed. He turned to another nearby body, another X, and another. Every corpse bore the same marking, etched deep into flesh. What could this mean? He muttered aloud, voice low and grim. He rose and looked at the others. This wasn't just a massacre. It was a ritual. The Vault Hunters exchanged grim glances before nodding to Suidas, who turned back toward the open cellar hatch. With weapons at the ready, they descended the creaking wooden steps, shadows from the torchlight above stretching long against the blood-smeared walls. A pungent mix of mildew and iron filled the air, wet stone, old ale, and something far darker. The headquarters of the Shadow Council was in ruins. The old war maps and magical parchments once lining the walls had been torn or burned. Candles flickered where they had fallen to the floor, but it was the writing that stopped them in their tracks. Smeared across the stone walls in deep crimson were jagged markings, twisted letters and broken words, not from any known tongue. Cliff narrowed his eyes, his mind rifling through old tomes and forbidden scrolls he once stole glances at in secret. "This is Kandarian," he muttered under his breath. "Kandarian demon script. Old, violent. It speaks in blood." At the far end of the chamber, lit by a flickering lantern and the green glow of druidic magic, Lucky was pinned upright against the wall. But it wasn't him. Not anymore. Thick vines, pulsing with an unnatural rhythm, had pierced his limbs and coiled around his chest like a macabre embrace. Adriel stood in front of him, her bare feet slick with blood as she channeled her energy into the staff. She barely noticed the others until Suidas stepped into view. Her eyes widened with relief. Behind her, Lucky snarled. His skin had turned a putrid grey, like rotted meat left to fester. His once lively eyes now glowed a sickly yellow, the whites gone completely. His mouth stretched far too wide, fangs jagged and gnashing. His fingers ended in blackened claws, scraping and twitching even in restraint. When he spoke, the voice wasn't his. It came layered with others, dozens of others, whispering and screaming in unison from beneath the surface of his corrupted flesh. "We will strip the flesh from you all. Swallow your souls, bathe in the blood of the innocent." Adriel hissed and thrust her hand forward. Vines surged and wrapped around his mouth, muffling the rest of the horrors from spilling out. Panting, she turned to the Vault Hunters, eyes wide with urgency. "We need to kill him. We still have hope. You have Godric's staff. Trust me." She looked especially to Mr. Phantom, sweat pouring down her brow, her staff shaking from exertion. "There's something inside of him, something trying to tear through, but we can stop it before it takes full hold. Kill the body now, and we might still save his soul." The cellar hung heavy with silence after Adriel's command. The Vault Hunters stood still, haunted by the choice they'd just made. Lucky had been more than a barkeep. He was their guide, their comic relief, the first familiar face in a wild world full of uncertainty, and now, pinned to a wall and infected by something demonic, he was little more than a corpse. Or worse. They all knew it wasn't him speaking anymore. Still, it hurt. Cliff stepped forward, revolver trembling in his grip. His boots echoed on the stone floor, his breath catching as he stared into the twisted features of the man he once called a friend. Yellow eyes glared hatefully through the vine-wrapped muzzle, claws twitching with hunger. "I'm sorry, Lucky," Cliff muttered. The shot rang out, loud, final, deafening. The demon inside the barkeep hissed as the bullet shattered the temple. A guttural scream rippled through the chamber, accompanied by a violent gust of unnatural wind. The vines twitched, then hung lifeless. Lucky's body slumped forward. Only Adriel's magic kept it from falling. Mr. Phantom rushed forward, Godric's staff already glowing with swirling orange light. But just as he raised it toward Lucky's chest, Adriel blocked him with a hand. "Wait," she said, breathless. "Give it a minute." Her face was pale, eyes still locked on the corpse. He was possessed by a Kandarian demon, summoned by the Nibelnomicon. Those wretched sisters wiped out the town, then came down here and performed a ritual on Lucky. We're lucky he didn't make it back upstairs. Mr. Phantom lowered the staff, visibly shaken. Adriel went on. These demons, they spread like roaches through bites, scratches, blood, or worse, even corpses. That's why Godric's staff didn't work on the townsfolk. Their souls were already claimed. Suidas raised an eyebrow. Wait, Nibble? Nomicon? Adriel turned toward her. Yes, it's a demonic cookbook. A sentient one. Every recipe inside is a curse, and the only way to stop it is to make a new dish. A better dish. One written in sufferer's blood, cooked with ingredients from the darkest corners of the Wonderlands, and the book has to approve, or it devours the cook. Silence returned. The Vault Hunters exchanged uneasy glances as they stared at Lucky's now still body. Not for the first time, the weight of this mission pressed against their ribs like a slow-crushing vice. Adriel broke the quiet. I think enough time has passed. Revive him. Mr. Phantom stepped forward. Godric's staff pulsed with orange light, warm and radiant in the gloom. He pointed the tip at Lucky's chest. The runes on the staff glowed, and the light funneled forward, weaving into Lucky's heart. A beat passed, then another, and with a sudden gasp, Lucky's chest heaved. His yellow eyes were gone, replaced by the warm brown irises they remembered. Colour returned to his cheeks. He coughed violently, looked down at himself, and then stared up at Adriel, still pinning him to the wall. Now what in the skag's balls is going on? Lucky barked. Adriel, be so kind as to unhinge me from these goddamn weeds. The hell's wrong with you? Adriel gave a weak laugh and waved her staff. The vines slithered back into the walls, disappearing through the cracks. Lucky fell to the ground, caught himself, and rubbed his neck with a grimace. It was like nothing had happened. He dusted himself off, stretched, then made a beeline for a crate full of whiskey bottles, whistling low. All right. Anyone want to help get some whiskey upstairs? I got customers waiting. The Vault Hunters said nothing. Lucky paused, squinting at the blood symbols painted across the walls. What the hell? Okay, whoever thinks they're the next big artist needs to clean this shit up. Time is money, and I love money, so stop wasting it. Cliff stifled a laugh. Even after death and demonic possession, Lucky was still Lucky. Suidas took a breath and stepped forward. I'm sorry, Lucky, but your customers are gone. He blinked. Gone? Hell no, get 'em back in the tavern. I'll comp the first round. Lucky no, she said gently. They're dead. Lucky's smile faltered. He stared at her for a long moment, then slowly looked around the room, really taking in the blood, the broken candles, the silence. Well, shit.